Hi, this is Greg Anderson, and this is the Living in Carver County podcast. It's an insider's guide to the people who make Carver County the best place to live, work, and raise a family. My guest today is a longtime friend and somebody that I've admired, that my wife and I have admired, Bob and his wife Sharon for a long time. And my guest is Bob Moeller, I should say, first of all, and it's Bob, somebody that I've admired for a really long time. I got to know Bob when we served on a committee through our local Rotary Club, where we brought in a bunch of Russian business people for a series of adventures and work experiences and so on. And Bob was in charge of that. And I'm just always so impressed with the way he handled people and things. And so we're going to talk today about Bob's role with the county in terms of expanding all of the amazing trails and things that we have. But before we get going, Bob, thank you for agreeing to be on. I appreciate it very much. And tech skills notwithstanding, we're going to rock and roll on this. Can you hear me okay?
Greg. I appreciate it. And I also have enjoyed, working with you over the years. And can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. So.
Can you hear me?
I can. We're getting a little bit of an internet unstable thing here.
Okay.
How's that?
So let's try it this way.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Anyhow, I've enjoyed, Greg, our time together working on the Rotary and on our international Russian project and many other things. So I'm happy to be here this morning.
Well, terrific. I'd like to start off with, maybe just hearing a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? And, kind of a career path that, put you in Chaska.
Sure. I grew up in Rosemount, which at the time I grew up there was a very little town, and the school was a very little school. But I then went to the University of Minnesota. And my professors in high school had encouraged me to be going in engineering, because about that time the Sputnik Russian technology boom was going on. So I went in to be an engineer, but I found quickly that I was going to be a very poor engineer relative to the other ones who really were much more skilled at engineering than I was. So I ended up with a degree in business, which I liked a lot. I spent 2 years on active duty in the Navy, flying over the North Atlantic, doing surveillance for Russian aircraft in the late 50s, which was part of the DEW Line extension. And I spent a total of 6 years in the Navy, and I really liked it a lot. But came back home and went to graduate school in business at the university, where I met my wife Sharon, and we got married in 1962. And so we have been married nigh on to 59 years, which seems like a heck of a long time. But it doesn't seem like a long time interpersonally. We've really enjoyed each other very much.
Good recovery.
Yeah. I started my career with Procter & Gamble down in Cincinnati. I was recruited to go down there and work in the toilet goods business, and my first assignment was on Pampers diapers. So I was in the initial team developing and marketing Pampers. And the good news about this story is that they were trying to figure out what to do with all the seconds that didn't turn out very well in the production line. And Sharon and I had just had our son. And I said, well, ship them out to my house. So we had 2 years full of free Pampers diapers. Came back home after some bouncing around and went to work for Tonka over in Mound, Minnesota.
Sure.
And after that, went to work at Toro, which I liked a great deal. And so I worked at Toro for many years and moved to California, where I ran the irrigation business for about 6 years, and then moved back to Minnesota. And then at the end of my career, I went into consulting and very much enjoyed the consulting and strategic planning and long-range planning, helping people with new products. And so that's been pretty much my career. But in that time, these were high-stress jobs, many of them. And so I would run to try to deal with my stress. And so it was pretty common for me to come home, change my clothes, and go out running. And I would do that all year round. But at the time that I was doing this, the roads were the best place to run because there weren't a lot of trails on many of the roads. And as I said, I ran year round. So I started recruiting some friends, and we created the Frosty Buns Running Club. And we ran all year round. On Sunday afternoons, we would run, and we would run unless it was below 20 below, then we didn't go. Otherwise, we would run every Sunday. A lot of fun. But in that time, I also got run off the road a couple times, once accidentally and once on purpose. And so I got pretty cautious about that and really wished we had more trail systems. At about that time, I joined the Planning and Zoning Commission for Chaska, and working with Kermit Crouch, we worked out some changes in policy which encouraged developers to put walkways into neighborhoods and encouraged the city to put walkways on collector and sub-collector streets. And so that policy change made a big difference in terms of what we now do in terms of Chaska and its walkways. Well, a lot of time
roughly, I'm going to interrupt you, excuse me, but roughly what year was, and when did you move to Chaska, and how quickly did you start getting involved in community service? And roughly what kind of a time frame are we talking about here? Is this the 60s, 70s, 80s?
We moved to Chaska in 1973, and then we moved to California in 1980, and then I came back in 1984, although the family came back prior to that. We moved back into our regular house that we had rented out.
In early 1970s, Chaska was like sort of the next small town on the way out of the cities. I mean, it wasn't, suburban, it certainly as suburban as it is now. What motivated you to, why Chaska at that point?
Well, my job was in Mound.
Okay.
And we wanted to be on the west side of town. And Sharon looked at 63 houses and found one which is delightful. And it was a home in Better Homes and Gardens, being a contemporary home. And it was light and fresh and looks out onto a wildlife swamp. It's very, very pretty. So we enjoyed it, and that's how we got here.
Okay.
But we like the schools, and we like Jonathan, and we like the walkways and the trails through Jonathan, and the underpasses that would let our kids go down to Lake Grace without having to cross streets. And we like the educational system in Chaska. So there was a lot we liked, and it was a full, what I'm going to call a normal town. It wasn't a bedroom community of executives. It was a town of all range of people, and we really liked that.
Okay.
And Jonathan was of that nature, and we really liked that.
Okay, so I'm sorry. So I broke your chain of thought there, but you were talking about, working with Kermit to, expand the availability of trails. And for people who don't know, Jonathan, that was sort of baked into the concept, that the trail, that was part of the whole sort of ethos of Jonathan, was that you'd have this connectivity, but that really, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, that really wasn't very commonplace, was it?
No, it was very unique and it was very exciting. But obviously they weren't plowed in the wintertime, and it wasn't very good to run them at night. So Bavaria at that time was a dirt road, and there was no trail along Bavaria at all, which is mainly where I would run. There was something else, Greg, I was going to add in there. You asked me about when I got involved in the community, and I suppose I got involved out here on the Planning Commission in the early 90s, I think 91 or so. I had been involved at my professional side with the Department of Corrections, and I worked as an advisor at the Department of Corrections in the prison industries for probably 15 years in the early 80s. So Sharon and I have been involved in community activities really all of our life. But anyhow, back to the story.
Okay.
So
the darn host keeps getting me off track, man.
No, that's great. So anyhow, we began the process of expanding the trail system, which was already significant, but adding it along the collector streets and in the neighborhoods where in those earlier days they had no sidewalks. And it just made a lot of sense, it seemed to us, to have that provision for safety. At the end of that period of time, I joined the Carver County Parks and Open Space Commission and worked with Marty Walsh. And at that time, Mary Hirschberger Thune was also on that committee, who was then the mayor of Victoria. And we got to be good friends. So an opening came up on the Met Council's Parks and Open Space Commission in 2000, about 10 or 11, I would say, somewhere in there. And I was appointed to that position. And there I got a bigger look at the overall community and the regional trail systems. And what became apparent to me was that the trails were pretty well set up going east and west, but there wasn't much for connecting the trails going north and south. Now let me digress here for a second. There were a couple seminal moments, I think, in my thought process over the years as it related to trails. And one of them came from Lanesboro. If you or your listeners have been down to Lanesboro.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. And one of the main draws down there is, of course, the Root River and the trail system that runs along that river and connects little towns. And so people can ride down there and ride along and stop and have a beer, or stop and have an ice cream cone, stay overnight someplace if they want, or then come back. But the bike riding is a big deal, and it's a big tourist pull. I talked to the head of the chamber down there, and she said she thought it pulled in well more than $1 million in tourist revenue because of those trails. So that really stuck with me, and as I began to work with the Met Council on this parks and trails, it seemed to me that there was really an opportunity for Chaska and Victoria to take advantage of a much bigger tourist impact if we could connect these regional trails, the one that ran out from Hopkins out toward Chaska, with the one that runs out from Hopkins over Lake Minnetonka, around Lake Minnetonka, I should say, into Victoria. Mm-hmm. So as I looked at the plans for the regional trail connection, the county said it'll probably be 2030 or more before that finally gets completed. So Mary Thune and I talked, and we said, wouldn't it be nice if we could tie up and make a connection on Bavaria to connect these two regional trails and think about all the good it would do for the community and the business and tourism, as people could ride out from Minneapolis or Hopkins and make a loop for the day, come out, ride down into Victoria, have an ice cream cone or a beer, and then ride down to Chaska, maybe have some dinner, and then ride back to Hopkins or stay overnight. So that idea began what we later created as the Chaska Victoria Linking Trail Committee.
Okay.
So we invited the city managers and the Parks and Open Space Commission representatives from the various cities in the county to come together periodically with a mission of encouraging the governmental units to focus on and build this linking trail committee, this linking trail.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought we could maybe get that done in 2 or 3 years. Well, I was a little naive on that point.
Dare to dream, right?
So we put together this really kind of cool committee with the county and the city, Marty Walsh and Matt Paderowski, and we had some of the citizenry people like Dan Keyport and now Marshall Grange, and Mary Thune from Victoria and Ann Monkey. Now the head of parks in Chanhassen, Jerry Rugemeyer rather. We've also got on that committee the head of Three Rivers Park System, Jonathan Fleming. So we have really quite a group who frankly enjoy getting together because it gives them a chance to kind of compare notes about what's going on in their particular area.
Sure.
But and Greg, stop me if you want to ask questions along the way.
You know, you're on a roll. But I will take this. I'll take this second to stop for people who don't know the two trails that Bob was referencing. There's an access. It used to be the primary access was off Bluff Creek Drive, and there's a little parking lot there, and it's an old LRT trail or an abandoned railway trail that runs from that little part of Chanhassen, and it's actually Chan there on Bluff Creek Drive, and goes all the way into Hopkins. And it goes under Pioneer Trail and along the southeast part of Lake Riley, and then runs through Miller Park. It's the trail that goes under Highway 5 over near Mitchell. So if people have seen that trail. And then the northern version starts on the north end of Hopkins, and that's the trail that runs through Minnetonka. It crosses 101. It runs through Deep Haven. It runs through Excelsior along the lake, and then ends up, through Shorewood. It's the trail that if you're going over on 19, like heading over, like to Mound, that crosses just past Joey Nova's there, where that little, that building that used to be I think it was a swimming pool or a hot tub store. And then it runs all the way out into Victoria along the, just on the north side of where the ice cream store is and the city hall is there, and runs out along there. And so I used to run on those, that was 50 pounds ago, but they were great trails, but you're right, there was never a way to connect them from the north and the south. You kind of took your life in your hands, to get there. I used to run up from our place, I'd run up Audubon and then up Powers to Galpin, and then Galpin up, and then, kind of cross Highway 7 to get on that, or to, get to jump onto that trail. And you always kind of took your life in your hands, especially like along Galpin. There was no shoulder, there was no ditch really. And to your point, you could get run off pretty easy. But the other thing about it is that connectivity to the whole Three Rivers system out there, which is just incredible. I mean, the trails are really kind of the hidden gem out here in terms of what's going on. But I just wanted to give people context if they're not,
exactly.
trail people. Now the connection, what we really like that LRT trail on the south, because the city did that last connection loop from the trails that ran north-south along Audubon, and then where it kind of loops around at Engler and then connects up. So you don't have to, you used to have to go out onto Chaska Boulevard or the old 212, kind of dodge trucks along the shoulder to jump on that that first mile section between, Chaska Boulevard and where Bluff Creek is. So.
Well, thank you, Greg, for that fill in, because that one little section from Engler up to connect to the LRT for the Minnesota Valley Regional Trail was the first and a very difficult step in this committee's focus to get all these connections made. So it was a very exciting time, and thanks to Marty Walsh and his team, that got built and got paved. And so we now have a nice clear path down from your house up Engler and up onto the regional trail. Well, as a sort of a digression, just about the time we were going to, have high fives and, slapping palms, in 2014, we had this 10-inch rain that washed out the regional trail and put it in kind of a terrible position, because there's an 80-foot bluff that washed out back there, and FEMA came in and looked at it and said, no, we're not going to repair it. And so the bill to repair that thing was about $1.5 million.
Oh, wow.
And so at the time, the Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority owned the property. And Hennepin County, Three Rivers, leased the trail. And then it would connect in down by Bluff Creek, where you talked, to Carver County, where we had just paved it to connect. So for several years, we worked with Three Rivers and the Hennepin County Rail Authority and Met Council, and our committee just pushed and pushed and pushed and kept the pedal to the metal. And finally, the LCCMR pull tab money, the extra little money that goes for improving trails and arts and so forth, helped to finance this repair. And in 2018, Hennepin County decided to repair the trail, which they have just completed. And then Carver County bought the trail from them for the amount of the repair cost.
Okay.
The money for that came through the Met Council and the LCCMR money. And so it finally got done, and it's now connected, and there'll be a grand opening this spring. And once again, we'll have high fives and a lot of excitement, because that's going to open up a major flow of bikers and walkers into Chaska. It's a very exciting deal.
Well, and then if people haven't been on, I'm just sorry to jump in here, but if people haven't been on, it's basically the part that Bob's talking about is the new bridge over 101. And it's that section from 101, basically between 101 and where it goes underneath Pioneer Trail. And so for people who haven't seen that new bridge, if you haven't been on 101 from the roundabout, coming out of Shakopee going up to Pioneer Trail, that bridge is amazing. I haven't seen that new section of the trail repaired, Bob, because my big butt doesn't walk that far. The bridge is about as far as the dog and I can go, and still get back in time for to be functional for the rest of the day. But I'm excited that that's going to be done. I hadn't heard that was completed, so that's cool.
No, it's done. What they did, Greg, is they took and reduced the height of the trail in that part of the trail, and took some of the dirt from that to use as fill for repairing the washout.
Okay.
It's a major construction project back there. You'll enjoy seeing it.
Yeah.
But now it's open and back in business.
Oh, terrific. And if for people who don't want to walk that far, if you park at Bluff Creek, it's an easy walk. It's probably just a couple miles to get, what is it, about 3 miles from Bluff Creek to get to like, for example, to the east end of to Riley Lake Park on that east side. It's probably about 3 miles from Bluff Creek, right? So I mean, that's a relatively easy walk.
It's a very easy do it, maybe even less than that.
Yeah, and the
And
vistas
that
there are tremendous.
the new bridge, as you say, is lovely because you don't have to drive or ride down the hill and then back up the hill again.
Yeah, that was always a little sketchy because there was a curve coming around, and so if it was icy, you kind of waited, and then scoot like a bugger to get across there.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so yeah, that's great. So what else is on the plan? What are the big projects, the big connecting projects? Because I suspected, like most things, as it starts getting on, more of the communities in the county want to start, connecting to it, because it does, it's one of those things where everybody's stronger together than doing things sort of independently. So what does that look like in your mind, as the next 3 or 4 or 5 years kind
Well,
of transpire?
that's a great lead in. The city, from its part, is looking seriously at upgrading Engler and the trail system going between Audubon, going westward up to 41. They're considering an underpass at 41, which would be great for the school kids in the
Sure.
community center, and then moving all the way up to Bavaria as an upgrade and an improvement. What that will do then is provide an upgraded connection from the regional trail over to Bavaria. Now, going north on Bavaria, the trail is connected all the way up to Victoria, and Victoria has announced as their #1 improvement project that they will do this year is to complete the Bavaria Trail that will run from the terminus of Chaska's Trail in Victoria all the way up to Highway 5. It then will connect to the other improved piece already put in place a couple of years ago that will take you up past the apple farm and connect into the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail, which either goes into Victoria for ice cream cones and beer, or goes right and goes up to Hopkins. So it's a
I think we got to
huge connection.
hiking. We got to start biking and hiking with you, because there seems to be a reoccurring theme in your stops.
Yes, there are certain key elements to a ride, for sure. So we are on the edge of a significant breakthrough here, that the Bavaria piece will get completed.
Now that'll still require, will that go east, like where the trail goes under 5 by the Arb, or are you talking, or will you have to cross 5 at Bavaria to connect up with the North LRT trail?
At 5, you will need to cross with the light over to the north side of 5 at the apple farm, and then take that trail eastward where you can pick up the underpass at Minnewaska Parkway.
Okay.
Right now, the county is putting in a big connection as part of a regional trail system underneath 5, going southward, under 5 at Minnewaska Parkway.
Right. Yep. I'm familiar. I've seen the work. I've seen the they're building they did some retention stuff along there, because it's kind of a deep cut.
So it's a cooperative project with the Arboretum, which will run all the way along the edge of the property of the Arboretum, and will ultimately go under 41, going eastward, and run in front of or north of the Lifetime Fitness offices.
Nice.
And connect into Chanhassen. So again, a big deal. Will be a wonderful trail. And so things are really hopping.
Yeah, it's neat. I mean, you like, and that section, like for example, you mentioned like the section along Bavaria there, or between 41 and Bavaria. There's already a decent trail, basically from the starting at about where the vet clinic is there, that runs up along on the north side of Engler, and then in Chan, they've got all those trails you can jog over from Lifetime, and then get on the what is it called, Coulter, I think, which is essentially mirrors Highway 5 going east-west.
Yeah.
So So it's neat. It's really cool. And so you were mentioning the committee and you know, the economic opportunities with this. Have you seen a lot more uh, excitement from the various communities about kind of buying into this, and how does that differ from maybe what you guys were, you know, what you and Mary were dealing with when this thing was sort of a concept that you were talking about?
I think that there is still more to be done, very honestly. In Chaska, the view of the result was sort of dimmed because the trail ended up not being completed because of the washout. And so I don't think the city ever really felt the benefit of that. Also, it ran along the dike, and so it became kind of diffuse. Where in Victoria, sorry to use my focuses, but the trail goes right next to the ice cream store and right across the street from the beer joints.
Yep.
In Chaska, it's not quite so clear. There's not such a neat gathering space yet in Chaska. We have more work to do to capitalize on the tourist draw for our town, I think. And I've met with and talked to the Business Alliance a couple times. Dan Keyport is on the committee and also does it. It's just a work in progress, and I look forward to seeing that blossom. One of the other key trail things that's going to help that, Greg, is another trail that Chaska is planning. And if you and your listeners can visualize where that rail bed is on the south side of what is now 61, that runs along parallel to 61, the city will put a trail on that rail bed from Audubon all the way into town. We'll go under 41 right behind Dan Keyport's wine shop and connect in with the trail going to Carver. And that will make a big difference in terms of bringing people downtown, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. I was talking about that last night with some of the members of the Arts Consortium, because they talked about wanting to do, you know, they want to do like a sculpture tour, and you know, a lot of that'll happen after the 41, you know, the turn lanes get put in and things. People don't necessarily know that, you know, they're taking away the parking on northbound 41 to put in the turn lanes, and so from a safety standpoint, to get underneath that abandoned railway that you're talking about is kind of diagonally from Dan Keyport's and then goes across to where the old soft soap is there. And that'll make access from north, you know, from east to west on 41 much safer. And tying in with the, and to your point, tying into the Carver Trail system right now, which will get you out to downtown Carver. And so I'm told there's beer available in downtown Carver.
I have heard that, but ice cream is, well, actually, in fact, they do have an ice cream parlor.
Yeah, that's just going to say they do. I had Courtney
on
a few weeks ago, and yeah, that was one of the things she was quite pleased with, is the new ice cream store out there.
Yeah, so, it's nice.
Yeah. So, you know, you and Sharon have been kind of longtime community, you know, really big contributors to the community. In fact, you got the George C. Klein Service Above Self Award. I think it was the first time it was awarded to a couple. You're kind of the dynamic duo. So, you know, maybe talk a little bit about what that's meant to you guys, you as a couple, in terms of, you know, you're both, you know, very, very active in things. And, you know, how has that impacted your lives as citizens of Carver County?
I think being here in Carver County has been a real blessing, because it was small enough when we got here that there were opportunities to participate. And Sharon has been very involved in the League of Women Voters and other functions of that type. And I've been able to work using some of my talents and experiences on the city and county and now regional trails, or regional parks and trails. And it's part of our philosophy. I mean, we feel like we've been blessed, and we feel like we want to give back. And it also gives us a chance to to work with nice people like yourself and others. And the Rotary Club clearly provides us an opportunity of service above self. The philosophical part of that Rotary Club is important to us. And I think that's kind of the way we were brought up, both of us. So we think that being a participant, doing our part to make a community better, doing our part to share the load, is something we want to do, and we enjoy doing. And we get the reward of having to get to work with other people and the fun that creates. So it's rewarding and enjoyable.
Nice. I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything else that you want to share at this point? Or, I mean, you're always welcome to come back. I'd love to have you come back. There's tons of things we could dig deeper into, but is there anything?
I have one other thought, Greg. Yeah. When Mary and I were talking about this committee, we were mindful of, or I guess maybe I was mindful of, Bob Lindahl's ad hoc committee in terms of promoting the construction of 212. And Bob just hung in there with his committee and worked with anybody who he could influence to focus on and prepare for and spend money on building that 212. And really, that's what we did. We worked as individuals, and in some cases, many of them were part of the governmental bodies, but we worked to focus. We worked to tell the story, to create the vision of the excitement of having bikers and families ride out on a weekend day and enjoy this lovely area of ours. So promoting that vision and being a cheerleader was a good part of our efforts.
Nice.
And Bob Lindahl was a great model of that.
And one, Bob is absolutely on my list of people that I'd like to talk to. And I think it's important to, for people, especially, we're in a transitional time as a community. There's a lot of new people coming in, and people are really benefiting from the thoughtfulness and, sometimes years and years and years of effort that people put in to make this community what it is today. And so as someone who came relatively recently, Cindy and I moved down here in '93. So by old Carver County standards, that still makes us carpetbaggers, but by new standards, we're long in the tooth. And it's just such a cool place. And I mean it when I say the best place to live, work, and raise a family, because there's so many opportunities for people to engage and things to take advantage of. It's not simply a bedroom community. And, I just wanted to acknowledge you and Sharon for all the years of work that you guys have done, to make it a nice place for, for us to have raised our family. And we're trying to, kind of follow in your footsteps in terms of doing things back for the community and kind of, sort of paying it forward, if you will. So, I just want to publicly thank you for all the years of work. And, and you're right, Mary Thune just is a dynamite person, and certainly Bob Lindahl. There's a lot of people that were behind the scenes that were really instrumental in taking things doing things rather that, sometimes people can take for granted. So I think that's probably, yep. I need to shut up, and so we can, I can let you get back to work, but I really appreciate you being on, Bob. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. I enjoyed the opportunity, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to
Mr. O. Anderson.
Yeah. I'm going to stop recording now.